yeah, that's
Jack
interesting.
was good last night. I just like listening these days.
Yeah, and that's why, uh, that's why we're giving him Monday evenings. That, he can definitely. Oh yeah, oh yeah, that's
Jack was
interesting.
good last night. I just like listening these
Isn't
days.
that funny?
I sound squeaky like a mouse. I do. I mean, I have to tell you, I don't love my voice, but
Oh my gosh, I always hate my voice too.
your voice is the nicest voice I've ever. If I were going to pick a voice, yours and Karen Wirtz.
The thing, oh, Karen Worth, oh my goodness. The thing about my voice is I made it this way. I worked on it. I used to have you wouldn't have been, you've been really surprised to see me. I wish I had some videos of me in my younger days when I was working in industry and stuff and working for the government. And I was very, what somebody called me, I was, what is it that they said I was? It's funny. I'll remember it. Um, but I just was like, I don't know, just really trying to, fit in and be. I was working in a world with nothing but men, and all these men, I mean, they were a lot of really horrible men that I worked with.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I mean, you cannot believe some of the stuff people did to me. Um, uh, but um, uh, but I just persevered because I went for the jobs that made the most money, and it was jobs that men had. And when I came into the working scene, it was just when affirmative action was taking place, and so companies had to hire women. And so they had to hire me. They hired four women. They had four crews, and they ran 24/7 operations. These guys, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and four women they hired, and they did what they called rotating. So each shift, each crew, one week would be on days, the next week would be on swing shift, the next week would be on midnights, and so we rotated like that, which was hell. If you cannot, I mean, it was hell because your schedule is all up and down, up and down. Um, but I worked with these men. They hired four of us to work with these guys. The first day, one girl left at lunchtime and never came back. And she left her locker on her lock and everything, and lock on her locker and everything. She just left and never came back. The next day, another one of the girls left, and so it just left two of us. And then the one girl got a job in the lab because it was a research facility. So she got a job in the laboratory, and so she was gone. I was the only woman working in this whole place. And honestly, they didn't have a ladies' room or any facilities. You had to go out and around and into another building to use the restroom. No showers. And this place was just disgusting. I mean, we worked with mud, basically. It was a mineral
God,
processing
you're
and
amazing. I don't
metallurgy.
believe you did all that because I would be the one to shy away from anything that had men involved.
Yeah, no, not me. I'm first off because I'm non-binary. And I didn't really realize that, but I'm non-binary. I don't recognize myself as a woman. And I've always been really resentful of being associated with being a woman. I've hated it my whole life, ever since I was a little child. I would say,
Now,
I,
non-binary means that you don't have any either or, right?
but yeah, I don't see myself as either or. Um,
Right.
but and I certainly never saw myself. I mean, obviously, I did all the things girls did, dressed up, wore makeup, did all that kind of stuff because that was culture, that was society, and that's how it was. But in reality, I did not. I was so mad that I had to grow up to be a woman. I just, oh my God, I was just furious about it. I just.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's really, in today's world, it's helpful for people to come out and say that, because there must be a lot of people that feel that way.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
our conditioning is what puts it in there.
yeah.
It's not choice, it's conditioning.
It's conditioning, yeah. Uh, you know, of course, everything was focused on me, being a girl my whole life. And I could not become a priest. You could not be an altar boy. You could not,
Right.
none of the cool stuff could I do because I was a girl. I mean, to me, that was a cool, so I wanted to become a nun. Okay, I'll be a nun, if that's what I have to be. But none of it I didn't ever want. And so, but I did want to be a mom. See, that's I wanted to have children and I wanted to be a mom. And
Yeah,
that
more
was
than
my
anything.
most driving force of everything. If I got with a man, I got married. I was married to the guy for like 2 years. And and the whole thing was I married him because he said we could make beautiful children. I wanted beautiful children. I married this man. He turns out actually he's gay and he doesn't want to have children at all, and he doesn't want to have sex with a woman either. So that
Ah,
that was a whole bunch of shenanigans in my early
right. A lot
years.
came forward. It's kind of interesting because, you know, people aren't aware of our conditioning makes up who we are completely. So for me, the reason I love Kamala is she's gonna really help people in this country who, I love people. I don't care what they are. I mean, they're not even people, they're spirit. But even before that, I would have felt that way. What they're doing with the I can't think, uh, the gay and then
Oh, the
LBG, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I,
They're
I
still
mean, I
doing
have to
business.
say, like, my son lives in Philly, and right next door they have two women, but they go by they. They're the nicest women. They have two children, and they just want to live their life, and they don't want to be made to feel different. But where Andrew lives is down near University of Pennsylvania. Have you ever heard of that? University of Pennsylvania?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So it's like a very open area when it comes to, and you have, it's mixed everything. And it just makes sense because the prejudice comes from fear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it comes from ignorance. The fear comes from
Ignorance.
ignorance.
Yeah.
And that's, when we don't know what we are, what each other are, then we're going to be fearful of that. Uh, and for me, I'm just thrilled about all the stuff that's going on in the gay or queer community, the transgender.
Oh my.
I'm
But they're
so
not being treated right, and that seems to bother this ego.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's painful because yeah, I have, many friends that are transgender, and it's not something you decide you're going to be. You don't, come in and say, "Oh, I think I'd rather be a girl or I'd rather be a boy." It's who you are. You know yourself as that. Me, I never knew myself as either one of those things. And, oh my God. My mother used to dress me up like her prize pig. She liked to, she sewed and she made all these little outfits. If you see pictures of me when I was little, I had these skirts that stuck out and just all this stuff.
I'd love to see pictures.
Yeah, I mean, that's how as a child, I was like, I was her little doll, basically.
Do you
So,
remember at the retreat we went to, there were two people, David and the girl Danielle were both saying that they were non-binary, right? They were
mhm.
talking. Oh, I spoke on the.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Nobody knows who they
Well,
are.
I love them, and I just thought they were so sweet, and I just wish that everybody would understand that we're all love. It's all BS,
Yeah,
nonsense.
gender is another form of separation. In fact, it's probably the most hideous form of separation because because of gender, we can't be complete uh, and create from a complete way because we have to have somebody else. There has to be another
Right.
involved. So I mean, that whole gender thing is just, I think, really hideous. it makes me really sad that we're caught up in that.
The whole country's going to,
Yeah,
I
the whole
have to
world.
say, yeah. Now, I did see, I don't go on Facebook as much as I used to because to me, it's just another way the ego can distract me.
Hmm.
But with some of the things I was, I don't have the friends that I used to have on Facebook that were, when all that happened 4 years ago, I wasn't where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I was angry and I just unfriended so many people.
Yeah,
And the
me
anger was
too.
fear.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, even and my own sister blocked me, and it's so crazy because now she has no idea how to unblock me. And every time I talk to her, I'm like, okay, all you have to do is do this. Well, maybe when, my son comes, when Kevin comes, he can help me. You know, she's never been able to do it. Now, I'm kind of, I don't post anything on Facebook, so that's the thing. I don't post
I
anything.
posted a little bit yesterday because I mean, the other day, just thanking him because I think he was a wonderful president.
Yeah.
In fact, in Andrew's lifetime, he said he's the best president he's ever had. You go on my
It,
Facebook, you'll see what Andrew wrote.
I'll go check it out
I
because
respect him because Andrew's very open, and he said he got that from me. He's always wanted everybody included, even when he was a child.
yeah. Yep, that's me too. You know that. So we are the inclusive twins.
Oh, the group I love. Sometimes I just want to listen and not talk because I'm taking it in. And sometimes I listen to the YouTubes a couple times because it has to go in deeper.
We have some amazing teachers in our
Oh, we do. I
group.
mean, now this other guy's going to come. Hakeem is wonderful. And I just
Yeah,
love Mandy. I just listened yesterday because I just feel like she has so much to give. I listened to her book last night just because, and I just loved it.
yeah. You'll have to have her do. Let me see if I can find it. Uh, uh, is Facebook on this? No, let me open Facebook. Open Facebook. You can do it. Come on. It's gonna go slow. I was gonna show you the picture of the halo that she did of me when and because I know Doug put up his halo picture yesterday. Do you see Susie Braverman? Those guys are moving to uh
Spain?
Spain. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
what is up with that?
Well,
That's
you're friends with,
crazy.
I don't know her really. I just like her, but I don't know her.
Yeah, I know her pretty well, but that some terrible things happened to um, her company was basically overtaken. Uh, it, weird. There we go. Here's my halo.
Oh my God, Lynn. Now, what does she do? She does the
She,
computer.
you send her the picture, your photograph, and you have to have a dark background, and then and she looks at that and she sees this is what she sees when she looks at you. And so, that this, this,
Gorgeous.
I know, isn't it
I
amazing?
would have this done as a painting. It's
It
gorgeous.
is so beautiful. Yeah, she'll do yours if you do a picture of yourself and send it to her that way.
Yeah, I'd have to find a black background, but I will. I have different pictures. I have to just look for recent ones.
Yeah, I had to go sit in a corner and turn off all the lights and everything to get the picture. But she got this of me, which yeah, I was quite impressed. And then when she was talking the other day, she was saying that people who were teachers had like diamond shapes. So, I mean, obviously, that
Yeah, you
kind of
look
diamond went out
absolutely,
of
I
my
would definitely take this, turn it into a picture and with a frame in your house.
put it up, yeah, to look at. So,
Because
yeah,
that's really, it just shows you the light in you. It shows you, like all of us are mixed with colors because they're chakras. So it's kind of like beautiful the way she's done this, because there's colors in our chakras. I don't know what they mean because I didn't study that much, but we
I
are
think you
full.
could ask the Holy Spirit. I think, and what's so crazy cool about that is, yeah, those are like those are like my favorite colors and everything too in that picture. So,
Oh,
um,
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that she comes in. Now, yesterday she stayed a while.
yeah, yeah, and she will because she works sometimes, but yeah, yeah, yesterday she didn't have to work. So, and oh my gosh, I just adore her, because she is just such an open spirit and
Yeah, no
loving
pretense.
heart.
Everything is all
Yeah.
heart.
I mean, that's basically the reason I'm going to uh, Scotland is because she's I really want to see her, but Sebastian will be there also, and Rodrigo and Booty. These are people that Sebastian is the one who wrote The Age of the Heart, or he channeled uh, um, the uh, what is it? Love, whatever the love series, and then also the Age of the Heart, which we just got done with a study of with Glenn Hoverman, and that whole focus of this group, I can experience it as a these folks are coming up or being shown and given how we are and how we live in this new world that we're creating, and we are co-creating the world in a uh, more like the real world as A Course in Miracles describes it. It's basically it's our action or how it is that we are that will bring about the evolution into the real world. And so
I hope
so
so. I
that's
don't know.
pretty.
Again, I don't know enough about any of this, but that's the best place to be when you don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I've really been wondering because so many teachers that you hear talking, like including Marianne, uh, they're not talking about, I want to see the real world. They're talking about, I want to make this world a better place. And it's not about making this world a better
No,
place.
because it's an attack on our creator. So no,
Yeah, and
and
you
ourselves
can't make
actually. It's
that
an attack
better.
on us.
The only thing you can do is, turn it over to the Holy Spirit.
Now
And
it's funny because I was trying to do a lot of sitting without that was the idea that I was trying was the problem, to not get into politics because I don't want to mess up what's spiritually. It's not really like if you listen to Joel's like, no, don't go there. And I still sometimes go there and I have opinions, so I'm not really.
yeah, well, because the body thinks that it's in danger.
Right. I think it
And
just wants to talk. That's what I think, because it just wants to, it likes conversation, the body, and it also feels like it knows. Because to tell you the truth, I do feel Kamala's better than Trump, without a doubt.
oh gosh. Yeah, well, as far as, well, I mean, if I was going to the ice cream store and all they had was um I don't
Right.
know, I would want which ice cream I wanted. Uh
Yeah.
because
Yeah. I hear you. Yep. Yep. Yep.
and that's um nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with having a choice of what you would prefer. And of course, because we think we know what the future is going to be, so of course we're going to be
Right. It's just a
trying to
story.
protect ourselves or defend ourselves in the future,
Right.
which if we just stay right here and right now, there is no future. It never comes. The future
The future
never
doesn't come.
comes
No.
because you're always now. There's
I know. It's crazy. It really is. It's just
it
crazy.
is crazy.
Hey, you want me
So
to start with Bill and Helen?
yeah,
You sure you want me to? Okay. Bill
yeah.
and Helen sometimes asked the author, I love this part, the voice Helen heard, why they were chosen to bring this material forward, because they often felt unfit for the job. The voice indicated that the confidence in them was not misplaced, at their commitment and agreement to do this work was already known. Eventually, they realized the inevitability of their commitment, and neither seriously considered giving it up. The answer Bill gave in a few interviews he granted to the question of why us was because you're doing it. You know, when you really look at it's already over. Like when he was doing it, Bill, you know, God already had turned, you know, this is just information that we needed. But it's like they were already chosen even before they knew it. I mean, everybody is, right?
Right. Because as the course tells us that, all of these roles were picked long ago at the
That's
time of the
right.
handyman idea. It was all
Funny that
laid.
she never really did it, you know, she put so much work into it. But she had a
Right.
relationship with Jesus. I just don't know why she didn't. What did she say? It's true, but I don't believe it, right?
Yeah. And why? Because she did not want to give up her judgments. That's the bottom line right there. I believe she just was so convinced that her judgment was necessary or helpful that she couldn't give it up, and that's the only reason. Because Bill did, and that's the difference. I mean, he had a while longer to work on it too, but he was already seeing it differently and seeing the value of forgiveness. For her, I think it still seemed like um, not not helpful or not necessary. That giving up judgment was not. Uh, it's just like people who say, "Yeah, I know there is no world, but I still don't want this person to be the president, or I do want this person to be the president." So I guess my thought is, instead of asking why did Helen not do it, uh, all I need to do is ask myself why I'm
How
not
about it?
doing it.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you. Like, I don't even question that because I still think I have some kind of merit here.
Yeah, and so did she. Absolutely. I mean, no matter what Jesus was telling her, and there's a whole section that Bruce and I just read from Absence from Felicity. That's pages and pages of Helen. Basically, Jesus just directly speaking through Helen, and Bill typing it up while she's saying all these things.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
it's it's pages and pages, very long. And the thing is, it was like a conversation. Jesus would say something, Helen would say something. Jesus basically was telling Helen, and so Helen, through her lips, words talking to Bill, this is how Bill screwed this up, and this is how you are making this mistake, and this is why, you're seeing things this way. These words were coming out of her mouth, but it was not like she was actually saying it, because it wasn't her. Those were not her thoughts. Those were not her thoughts. So, so the whole time, I mean, it's a whole kind of a teasing about, how silly you guys are, and, why you're doing the things and Jesus explaining in great detail to her why she was doing some of the things that she was doing. And it wasn't her writing these things down. It was her sitting there talking and Bill typing up the words that were coming out of her mouth, direct channeling. And, it just,
I'm going to sit with that and just listen to you. And because sometimes I can't get there and I come after, but I'll
mhm.
try to get there because I do love Bruce and you together. You're a great team. And I have the book. I just, I have to get myself into it.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, it's kind of thing though that out of all the books that have been scribed, this one is the masterpiece. Now, again, I'm making it special, and I know that, but the story behind it, and there's so much, what's the word? Maybe it's because it appeals to me because I love psychology.
hmm yes,
And that's
yeah.
just the truth. I've always been very, prone to want to understand human nature because it's berserk. Anyway, she says, why us was because you're doing it. That was a correct but insufficient answer. In the text, defined as a reconstructed protext set up as the basis of variants, extant later texts. And in this case, Bill's original unedited type notes of ACIM, the author gave them a more complete and direct answer. Okay, let's see what it says. Hi, Mickey.
Yeah, I was just gonna say hi, Mickey.
Maybe she's Hi, sweetie. Come and share if you want to, if you're not busy. Hi, love. Okay, it says you have been chosen to teach the atonement precisely because you have been extreme examples of allegiance to your thought system and therefore have developed the capacity for allegiance. It has indeed been misplaced. Look at that. I'd be a good one too. You didn't pick me. Bill has become an outstanding example of allegiance to apathy. And you, Helen, have become a startling example of fidelity to variability. But this
Do
is
you
a
hear
form,
that? I'm just this is I think this is part of the thing that Bruce and I just read. I mean, this is Jesus telling Helen, uh, Bill is an outstanding example of allegiance to apathy, and you are a startling example of fidelity to variability. That's hilarious. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
he's
it's kind of like, it's funny because if a lot of the way that the scribing was happening, it happened in probably like a harder way of speaking because it's well, I don't know if did they do iambic pentameter in the beginning?
No, in the very beginning, because I think a lot of it was she was really confused and she was not knowing, what was going on. And so the stuff at the beginning is a little bit rougher as it goes along. It gets more sophisticated.
Right. It has
And
the
then in the
beginning four
later part of the
chapters.
book,
Yeah.
and in the lessons, the later lessons too, that iambic pentameter really shows up.
The later
Uh,
lessons, what you said, later lessons?
the iambic pentameter shows up a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I do love that. I mean, because the whole point is not to try to understand any of it, because the understanding is what we are. And the
right.
understanding is spirit. So the understanding is already known to spirit. So we're just kind of, and I think what I drove myself crazy with was the ego in me was trying to understand everything they were saying, and that's not necessary. They're
No, it's
saying
not.
basically nothing happened. It was a thought system. So here he writes, you have been chosen to teach the atonement precisely because you have extreme examples of allegiance to your thought systems and therefore have developed the capacity for allegiance. Who doesn't have allegiance? We're always allegiant to something. It has indeed been misplaced. Bill has become an outstanding example of allegiance to apathy. Okay, I read that. And you, Helen, have become a startling example of fidelity to variability. But this is a form of faith which you yourselves had grown willing to redirect. You cannot doubt the strength of your devotion when you consider how faithfully you observed it. It was quite evident that you already developed the ability to follow a better model if you could accept it. Wow. Because Helen was so easily upset and challenged by the subject matter of the course, it was difficult for them to discuss the content once they assured its accuracy. Therefore, Bill sworn to secrecy, had no one with whom to explore the ideas to discover what they actually said and how to apply them in his life. In the beginning, absolutely no one knew about ACIM project, which they carefully fit in around the edges of their official jobs. Several months before the dilemma of having no one to talk with became acute, Bill's friend at the hospital, Cal Hatcher, had approached him about his desire to discuss religious or spiritual matters. Bill assured him he was talking to the wrong person because he had no knowledge or interest in such subject at that time. Therefore, when ACIM turned his values, his assumptions, and his very life upside down, Bill instinctively knew Cal was the person he could trust with their secret. Although the thought system was entirely different from anything he had learned or that the psychology taught, it seemed I can say it, eminently practical and thus very appealing. He was anxious to try out. Predictability, Helen was more than upset when he told her that Cal would now be his confidant. Bill wrote, afterward, After making the arrangement with Cal, when I would type up the copies, I would give Helen the original, keep one copy, and gave Cal the other each morning. For several years, we met in my office early in the morning before. Hi, Myrna, it's back. Hi, sweetie. Okay, all right, what does it say now? For several years, we met in my office early in the morning before 8 a.m. because we had to meet before scheduled activities. I would go over the material that I had typed the preceding day and try to explain it to Cal. This was my attempt to learn what it meant by trying to teach it to him, and it was enormously helpful. Cal knew much more than I did about the Bible, which was all very new to me. He had a critical, inquiring mind and wanted to know what this meant, what the implications might be. This gave me the first opportunity to try to find out what I thought about. Our talks were extremely helpful, and it made it possible for Helen and me to continue even when I felt we were not learning it together. It was much more difficult to go over the material with Helen. Over to you, Lynn,
All
and
right.
anybody else.
Yeah, this is pretty cool that, the first activity that Bill actually had with this material, besides being the typer-upper of it, was actually to teach it to another person, to join with another person in an attempt to understand. And so I love this whole thing. And I remembered what that one secretary said about me, when I used to work. She said I was meek and subversive. She's all, Lynn, you are so meek and subversive, not submissive, subversive. And I guess that was true. Okay, continuing. Although Cal proved to be a much needed partner in studying the material, Bill was deeply disturbed that he and Helen seemed unable to decide harmoniously how to use ACIM to work on their relationship, much less actually put it into practice. In fact, he felt their situation worsened as the course continued to unfold. Helen became increasingly hostile as she projected onto Bill the sense of threat engendered by the material, and from his perspective, she actively attempted to undermine him. She took the course statement seriously and literally when it referred to you, Helen, and Bill, which they later translated, throughout the books into the two of you or you and your brother. Oh, excuse me. I have read this so often, you and your brother and the two of you. And it never occurred to me that he was talking to Helen and Bill. It only occurred to me that he was talking to me about my relationship with my brother. So I love this, that in the actual notes he was saying Helen and Bill, but they changed it to the two of you or you and your brother. Wow. He agonized over the observable lack of progress with her. He used to say it was impossible to express how much this seeming failure with Helen upset him, and his ongoing angst with her was just a subplot in the pressure cooker that was the highly competitive medical center. As he commented later, much of the time I felt I was a constant, it, I felt was much of the time, what I felt was a constant temptation to walk the plank. Poor Bill. Oh my gosh. All right, because the increased upset is such a common experience for new students of A Course in Miracles, um, I believe it should be addressed. I have worked with many people who found that at some point in their early practice of the course, lives seemed to get worse rather than better. In fact, in my classes, I warn students this is likely to happen, and that it's reasonable to ask why they should embark on a practice that might stir up more upset. The answer, of course, is that sooner or later, it's our only choice. Addressing our fears is ultimately required of everyone, not to inflict punishment, but because this is how to release them. And that's why we were talking about earlier, bring the darkness up to the light, not trying to bring the light
Right,
to the darkness,
right.
bringing the darkness up. So Uh, so not to inflict punishment, but because this is how to release them. Bill felt, as everyone eventually finds, that tolerance for pain is only so high. The introduction to the text speaks of removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. When we ask for help, we become aware of those blocks or fears so we can address them directly and make happier and more sane and peaceful choices. So yeah, that's uh, um, Bill himself going through all this, and God only knows. Of course, we have absence from Felicity to tell us what Helen was going through at the time, uh, because she was going through some deep changes also. Okay. Um, since Bill and Helen were devoting extensive time to the course project, but seemed to be getting nowhere with healing their relationship, Bill decided to test its premises with other, less volatile relationships that needed attention. If it could produce changes with a difficult colleague, he thought, it ought to work anywhere. Judy Sketch Whitson recalls Bill's telling her more than a few times, with unusual for him seriousness, about one of his first dedicated attempts to practice the Course in Miracles as the lessons were being dictated. Okay, and this is so a thing with a friend. Art was a co-director of the Department of Psychology with Bill. In fact, he had been instrumental in Bill's coming to Columbia in the first place. They were friends, had had a long walk together professionally, and I think accepted and liked each other. Then Bill hired Helen, and all hell broke loose. Art didn't like Helen, really didn't like her, and had great antipathy toward her. Bill told me that Art thought she was certainly did excellent research work, but that she was too much trouble. A high maintenance lady with distracting at meetings. He found her sharp. In other words, they didn't get along. At times, he asked Bill to fire Helen, and Bill dug in, unequivocally refusing to do that. Of course, Art had no idea what was going on in their office as far as the course was concerned. As dictation on the workbook began, Bill recognized that it provided a process one could pragmatically use to change relationships or um, re-envision them. Wondering if it would really work, he chose Art, who was currently not talking to him, for his experiment. Art now had as much antipathy toward Bill as Helen, and was including him as a target of his anger. This fractured relationship with Art over Helen's presence was a major contributing factor to the chaos that made birthing the course so difficult. Art wouldn't even look him in the eye, so Bill decided to go to his office in the morning before work, knowing Art was always there. Went in knowing Art always went in early to read the paper. On his first attempt, Bill knocked on the door and asked if he could come in. Art didn't look up from his newspaper. Bill entered and sat quietly on a chair right across from Art's desk. Art never put down his newspaper, so after a while, Bill left. Every day for about a month, Bill went in, and Art never put down his paper or acknowledged him. By then he felt this Art guy is really stubborn. By then he felt much more comfortable and knew that he was guided to persevere. One day he said, "Good morning, Art," who grunted from behind his newspaper. For Bill, this was a very big sign. After several months of this routine, Bill had an early morning appointment elsewhere and came to his office later than usual. Around lunchtime, Bill saw Art, who said, "Where were you this morning? You didn't come in." Bill told him of his appointment, and that was the beginning of their talking again. So Art had to know that he loved Bill, and he
Right.
missed Bill when Bill didn't come in.
It's so funny the way people act.
Oh my gosh. It
I
is,
love how the background is given to us.
I know, it's just so gorgeous. And if anybody has any comments or questions, please feel free to do so. We have about 10 more minutes. So okay. Not long after that, all the upper staff members were invited to a conference where Bill and Art represented their department at the university. Checking into the hotel, though not together, each found the hotel had overbooked and there was a shortage of rooms. The hotel staff asked those who knew each other to double up. Art approached Bill and asked if he would like to share a room, stating, "There is no one here I would rather be with." Bill said he would be delighted, and after unpacking their things, they went down to the bar before dinner. As they sat there talking and waiting for dinner to be announced, Art took 3 almonds from a little bowl on their table, passed them to Bill, and said, "Edgar Casey says they're very good for you." Bill said he nearly dropped his front teeth. "Edgar Casey, Art?" Art replied, "Yes, he's this very famous psychic. During the war, this is a great story. Oh my God.
I
I
know.
love this story. Oh my God. During the war, I was stationed in Virginia Beach and I used to go to his house for lunch on Sundays. He was really a very great guy." Bill said at that moment he knew it was over. The situation with Art was the first time he had deliberately practiced A Course in Miracles. And of course, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And of course, their changed relationship improved the department's functioning. This quiet way was typical of Bill. He didn't go to Art saying, "Look, I know how you're feeling about the situation, and I don't blame you, but you're making me really uncomfortable, and here are the reasons for my decisions, etc." Instead, he sat there in the chair quietly. I'm sorry. This
Wow.
is too much. This is just too much. It's like, oh my God, we're just so cared for and so beautifully led to whatever and wherever. And I swear to God, if there could have been nothing more coincidental than this guy having had to work, had known Edgar Casey and knew about him. It's just so amazing.
I
It's
know it is. Yeah.
all right. Would you like to read on?
Um, now where are we again? I
The
dropped.
mention of Edgar Casey.
The mention of Edgar Casey was so meaningful to Bill because shortly before Bill's urgent speech to Helen that precipitated the onset of ACIM, he had read a book by Hugh Lynn Casey, Edgar's son. Although the claims regarding Casey's ability seemed preposterous by his own scientific standards, Bill sensed inwardly that the stories about him were legitimate. Wow. So it's always inside, so he felt it in his heart that this was true. On that basis, he planned a trip for Helen and himself to Virginia Beach to meet Hugh Lynn. Helen resisted going, as she didn't want to be considered a psychic or be associated with them, although she was privately impressed with her growing psychic abilities. She was often ambivalent about rejecting or embracing aspects of herself. Wow, their visit took place in the fall of 1965 after her several months of heightened visual imagery, just before the course began in October. Carol did great research here. Bill always thought that trip gave her permission to open up to her immense intuitive abilities, and also provided some rudimentary preparation for him. He began to think outside the box and look with growing, though quiet, appreciation of his own intuitive abilities. The healing with Art was only one of the number of relationships that seemed smoother as Bill attempted to follow his own guidance and the course instructions. Those around him began to notice that the department seemed less harried, and his secretary, having no idea of the real meaning behind what she was saying, would periodically proclaim, "Oh, Dr. Thetford has just performed another miracle." Or a close colleague, the chairman of the psychology department at the University of Chicago, would say, "There's Bill walking on water again." Bill himself felt that by the time he left the medical center, he had reached his goal, healing all his relationships there. all of course, except the primary one with Helen. Wow.
I'm
It's
gonna,
funny because when you heal one relationship, I always figured if you heal one, you're healing them all, but that's not how it happened for him.
yeah, no, I'm gonna stop this share and we
Okay.
can just chat until time for Dub and Myrna.
Yeah, but
Uh,
don't you think that, like, if you look at that, um, I don't know, I feel like I lost the thought, but anyway.
well, yeah, and I think you're right about that, Sharon. I think that as we healed, we're not healed alone. That's what the Course says. But you can't, even the Holy Spirit can't force somebody uh to do something that's outside of their nature or their comfort zone.
Right,
And Helen just she was a very stubborn, they're both very stubborn. Look how stubborn he was to go and sit in that guy's office every morning for months
right.
and not say a word and just sit there and read the newspaper with him to the point where that guy came to love him, literally to see the gentle, sweet spirit that was Bill and to love him. And I find
How
that
awesome is
so,
that?
yeah, awesome. It's just amazing. And so, uh, and of course, Helen loved Bill. Of course, Helen loved Bill. Um,
Well, we all love everybody. Everybody loves
yeah,
everybody here.
but she was a very stubborn lady and had her idea about how things should be, and
Right.
you know what you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So I don't know if anybody else has anything they'd like to share or um, Myrna, you're looking so gorgeous.
Bernie, want to tell us about your vacation?
I just unmuted. Vacation was lovely. Did I
Where'd
lose
you
you
go?
guys?
No, we're here.
Here I
Yeah.
am again. Yeah, it was lovely. It was it was a river cruise from Budapest to Prague
Wow.
and countries in between like Austria, Vienna, Salzburg. I mean, it was lovely. The only problem is everybody on the ship, and I mean everyone, got sick. It could have been COVID, but nobody was even mentioning the C word. I mean,
Did you get sick?
everybody had flu-like symptoms. And, so that was the only thing that was a little bit of made it a little harder because at the same time, you still want to do the excursions and the tours and so forth, but you manage, and it was a nice experience. So I'm
What
back.
a great opportunity.
It was very nice, yeah. And a lot has been going on here. I mean, forget it, the news, I don't even want to go into it, but we were getting it there as well, the shooting and all that. Yeah. And aside from that, though, it was it was a beautiful experience. You always meet nice people when you go away. It just works that way,
It
always.
does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or
And
when I had my children
mm,
in the hospital, the
mm,
roommate became like my best friend. I would tell her everything, and I didn't even know her.
there you go. Yeah, it really you meet people, you blend in, you feel comfortable. I don't know if you've ever been on a river cruise, but I don't particularly like ocean cruises because you're stuck in the middle of the ocean. But with a river cruise, you're really constantly, looking at land and beautiful scenery, and it stops every day. It's like it's like a houseboat, really, because it's small, basically.
I've only been on an ocean cruise, and I was 24.
Yeah, yeah.
Not, I was young, but I've not been on a river. That's good to know because my husband always
Uh,
talks about getting, river cruise is something he would like because it's not,
oh,
he
Oh,
wouldn't even do
it's
Europe.
fun.
He
I,
wouldn't do
I went on
Europe.
one in when I was in Germany on the Rhine River, um,
uh-huh,
and it was a castle cruise. So because there's all these castles along the
yeah.
way, so we
Mhm.
would stop and look around, and then we one place we stopped. It was they made the ice wine, and we had a wine tasting, and we had so much fun, and we had some Italian guys and some American girls on the on the cruise. And when we stopped at the place where we did the wine tasting, they started drinking. And when they came and called for everybody to come to the bus to go back on the ship, they didn't go. They're like, yeah, we're fine. Here they're on some little village out in the middle of Germany with no car, no vehicle, no, just, we're staying here. And everybody was just shocked. We got on the bus and the driver's like, where are those people? And we're like, they're not coming.
When you fall in love with a place, you really identify with it. I think if I ever moved to, not that I would, I mean, but I remember thinking if I were to move to Europe, I would probably like to live in Prague. I loved Prague. I mean, Prague is like a little jewel in the middle of Europe. It's, you talk about castles and palaces and
Oh, I
the
love that.
architecture. Oh, it's incredible. And the people are so different. I mean, when I say the people, we sat at the square eating ice cream, and people watching, people walking by. I mean, nobody's, I mean, not that I'm, I'm not criticizing any people in the United States, but they were very different. Nobody's tattooed. Everybody's very clean cut looking. And it's just an amazing difference in culture. You see it. You see the difference immediately.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.